What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Unlock Your Potential. I'm your host, Francesco Bartolillo. And before we get started on today's solo episode, I just want to take a quick second to say thank you to everybody who's tuned in, who's subscribed, who's followed, who's downloaded and listened. It means the world to me. I really appreciate it. If you've enjoyed the podcast so far, please feel free to share it to your friends and family. Hopefully there's stuff in there that can help you or help them. And I just really appreciate everybody's support. So thank you. So for today's episode, I wanted to do a little bit more of an individual episode on lessons I've learned in my entrepreneurial journey so far. I've been at this for the better part of 3-4 years now. I've gone through rebrandings. I've gone through restructuring of my business. There's been pauses, there's been breaks. Everything you can imagine has happened so far, and I still have such a long way to go. But there's some really good things I've learned along the way, things that I wish I learned when I had started my journey. And so I'm hoping that I can share some stories and insights and lessons that will help anybody listening in their entrepreneurial journey, or maybe as a business owner, co-owner, maybe as an employee, or maybe as somebody in an unrelated field, whether that's, sports or art, but maybe there's something from this that you can take that you say, yeah, that's applicable to my circumstances and can help me. So we're just gonna go through some of the lessons I've learned. We won't go through all of them, or else we'd need a 5-hour podcast, but we'll go through some of the first ones that came to mind for me. So the first one I had was, if you wait for your product or service to be perfect, you're never gonna start. And this was something that, early on when I was wanting to get my business going, it took me a long time to actually take that first step. And it was because I was trying to perfect everything. I was trying to figure out, what is my logo going to look like? What's my company's motto? What is our vibe? What's our theme? What's our branding? Then it was, what service am I offering? And what are the exact details of every package I offer? And is it good enough? Is it not good enough? Is it priced correctly? Is it not priced correctly? Just so many details that all of a sudden you find yourself going in a rabbit hole trying to figure out if it's perfect. And the reality is, when I finally did choose to start, and at that time I thought it was, perfect, it was far from, clearly, because I've changed the business so many times since. So my message or point with this one is, your business is never going to be perfect. Even 5-10 years in, it's not going to be perfect. There's always space to grow. There's always space to learn. And so if you're waiting for it to be perfect, it's going to take you forever to start, and it's going to take you even longer to learn those lessons that is going to help your product or your service or your business get as close to perfect as possible. So start sooner rather than later. Make those mistakes early. Learn those lessons earlier, because the earlier you learn them, it's going to help you down the road. It's going to help you make your product or service better. It's going to help you get as close to perfect as possible. The longer you wait, the longer that process takes. The second lesson I've learned is, when it comes to business advice, it's not a one-size-fits-all. I hear a lot of, not necessarily just podcasters, but business owners. They'll write about it, they'll post about it. Entrepreneurs, they'll share their stuff on social media, and you'll hear advice that they're so adamant about, that they say this is a must-do for your business. And then all of a sudden, you'll hear somebody else who's equally as successful in a similar field saying the exact opposite. And even some of the advice or tips I'm going to be sharing with you today may not help you. And that's totally normal, and that's totally okay. It took me a while to accept that the advice I'm hearing, I can't just go all in on one piece of advice that I hear, because maybe that doesn't fit me. And I'll use a really good example. I'm a big advocate for morning routines. I love my morning routine. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel healthy. It makes me feel like, my brain is sharp and I'm ready to go. I find my energy levels are better sustained throughout the day. There's all these different things that I really love about my morning routine. The days I don't do my morning routine, I often feel sluggish. I feel less productive. I just don't feel as good about doing my work. But that doesn't mean you have to have a morning routine to be successful. In fact, there's a lot of very successful entrepreneurs and business people in the world. I'll use Alex Hormozi, who's somebody that I'm a very, very big fan of, who says that morning routines are bullshit. And he thinks that instead of waking up and doing a morning routine for 2 or 3 hours, just work an extra 2 or 3 hours and you'll make more money. And maybe that is true for him. And maybe that's true for, 50%, 75% of the audience listening to this. But maybe for the other 25%, it's not about getting those extra 2 hours of work in. What's more important is making sure your mind and your body is fueled and ready to operate at the highest efficiency possible. So even though, some other people can roll out of bed, go to work, and work for an 8-hour day and be super effective and super efficient and come home and they're good. Other people, might need that 2-hour routine in the morning to get them ready to do that. So maybe they have to get up 2 hours earlier, and maybe they do lose 2 hours of possible work time, but maybe the work time that they do have, they're that much more efficient and productive in that time because of the routine they had that puts them in the optimal state to perform. And again, this is just from my experience. I find that the routine helps me. If you find that routines don't help you, hey, that's totally fair. But there's a second little add-on to that, which is sometimes you need to do routines or have some type of, schedule because of your circumstances. Because if you are starting a business and it's on the side right now and you want it to grow, maybe you have to get up, 2-3 hours earlier than most people so you can work on the side business before going to your actual day job, which is totally fair. But it all depends, again, on the individual. So it's really up to you on the types of routines you want and the type of advice you want to take from people. You have to know yourself. Know yourself as an individual. Know yourself as an entrepreneur. Know yourself as a husband or wife, a partner, a friend, a sibling, whatever you are, because those are all important parts of life. And if you're sacrificing a bunch just so you can, get the extra 2 hours of work in, maybe that's not worth it for you as an individual. So yeah, that's that piece of advice I learned pretty recently, actually, is the advice is not a one size fits all. You have to morph it and adapt it to you. That way you can work as efficiently and effectively as possible. The third lesson I learned was just because you do something for free or discount your product or service at the start, it doesn't mean you have to do that forever. And this is kind of like a twofold lesson, because the first piece was I was so scared at the beginning to discount my service or to do something for free, because I was like, oh, I'm missing out on an opportunity to make money, or if I start discounting my service now, everybody's going to want a discount. And I didn't realize that at the beginning. You're starting from nothing. I had no testimonials, no case studies, no historic proof that I even know what I'm doing or what I'm talking about. And even to this day, in terms of the grand scheme of things and business and, entrepreneurship, I'm very, very new still to this, 4 years later. I'm still in the, what I would call the entry level phase. So I'm still constantly learning, and there's still times where I discount my brand and I'll do things for a discounted price, or I'll do a project for free. I did one of the biggest projects I did back around Christmas time. I did completely free, and nobody knew it. But the reason I did it was to help grow my brand, to increase my reach. I gained a whole bunch of new followers from it. I created a new network of leads that came from that. But it happened because I did it for free. And that's because I'm still at the stage of my business where I need to continue growth and I need to continue to learn. And the only way you can learn is by doing things. And sometimes people aren't going to pay you to do things if you don't have, the history or the backing to show that they should be paying you for it. That's not to say you should do everything for free. It's just pick the right opportunities. If the right opportunity comes to do a project for free or to do it at a discounted price, maybe it's worth considering doing, because maybe you make a little bit less money, but you gain experience. Maybe that potential client becomes a full-time client in the future at your full price, which has happened to me a handful of times, where I do a project at a discounted price to get my foot in the door, and then they want to bring me on full-time, and then I charge my full-time price. There's lots of different benefits that can come from it. The second piece to this is that just because you've done things for free in the past or at a discounted price does not mean you have to do that forever. Once you reach a point where maybe you have a plate full of clients now, and the next client that comes in, you say, all right, I need to start charging full price, or I need to start charging more. And this is a really scary step, because for anybody who's an entrepreneur, that feeling of, oh no, I might lose this client, or I might not get this job, it's really scary, especially for those who maybe go all in and have left their full-time job or full-time employment. It can be even scarier for those. But even just for anyone, it's a scary feeling thinking, oh, I might lose this client, or I might not get this client, or this client might not renew if I increase my prices. But what you have to realize is eventually you have to start getting paid for the quality of work that you're doing. And if you believe that you are providing quality service to your clients and that you are being underpaid, then you need to be compensated for that. And so that is a very difficult but important and brave step that I think many entrepreneurs need to remember. Just because you started at a certain price, it doesn't mean that's your price forever. And just because you discounted at the beginning doesn't mean you discount forever. So as you grow, as your experience grows, as your quality improves, your pricing should reflect that as well. The next one is a bit of a quote, but a lesson I learned as well. And it was, you can't guarantee success through hard work, but you can almost always guarantee failure for lack of hard work. So what that means, what I'm saying is, just because you work really hard, you put in the hours, you do the cold calls, you do the cold emails, you do the marketing, you do everything, it doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Sometimes things just take time. Sometimes you need to wait for that right break, that right client, whatever it is. The working hard does not guarantee you the success, but I believe that it is a requirement to one day be successful. So if you're not working hard, if you're not going above and beyond, if you're not doing the work to improve your service or your product, if you're not doing the marketing, if you're not doing the cold calls, I can almost guarantee that you aren't going to be successful. Because people aren't just going to walk up to your door and ask for your product or service when you haven't established a brand or a name. Yes, maybe some of these big, industry leaders can do that because they're so well established that it doesn't matter at this point, but they've done the work to earn that. And you have to earn that right. You have to earn the right to be lazy. But the reality is, once you've earned the right to be lazy, most companies don't ever want to do that because they know that's just not how high-level businesses operate. So working hard is a requirement to be successful. And I believe that. And I believe that's not just for business, that's for everything. You can ask any pro athlete, any professional in art or music or any profession you like, really. Working hard is a requirement. It's just part of the process. And it's one that you can either dread or you can embrace and actually get excited about it. Get excited to wake up every day and say, I'm going to work as hard as I can to build my business, to take that next step, to move the needle day by day, till eventually all this hard work pays off. And if you do that, if you stay consistent with it, it will pay off. There was an interesting stat that I read or actually listened to on a podcast that really put it into perspective for me. And it was something along the lines of 90% of podcasts don't make it past the 20th episode. So to be in the top 10% of all podcasts, all you have to do is make it past episode 20, which is mind-boggling to me. Because realistically, what that's saying is, all right, to be in the top 10%, I just have to outwork everyone. I just have to not quit. I just have to not give up, and I will be better than 90% of the people I'm competing with. And I believe that's probably pretty accurate and true for a lot of different industries, and not even just industries, but a lot of different aspects in life. How many people do you know that start a gym routine and, 4 months in, 6 months in, they stop and they quit? Or they started a passion project and, a year later, oh yeah, I stopped doing that a couple months ago. Just by not quitting, you can get ahead of the field. So I think that was something for me that it goes back to that. Hard work is required in order to be successful. And it doesn't guarantee success, but it's required if you want to be successful. And the last one is just the no's outweigh the yeses 50-1. And that's just a number I threw out there. It's probably larger in some industries, maybe smaller in others. But what I'm saying is, you're going to get a lot more no's than you get yeses. And that's just the reality of business, reality of sales. When you are trying to sell a product or a service, not every single person is going to say yes to you. And from my experience, I'm probably close to that 50-1 range. Like, you have to ask 50 different people, 50 different businesses if they're interested in your service, and try and sell them on it before you get one yes. And anybody who's done marketing, my background is marketing, who's done advertising or paid ads or any types of these things, if you look at the reach and the impressions and you look at the actual numbers, the percents on return that you're getting are so low. And that's just normal. And yes, there are times where, you might get lucky and you might have a hot streak or a hot run where all of a sudden it seems like everybody's saying yes to you. But especially early on, the no's are going to come, and they're going to come fast, and they're going to be there frequently. It's just part of the gig. So the quicker you can embrace the no's, the quicker you can accept that, okay, no is going to happen. And it doesn't mean that I'm a failure or I'm incompetent. It just is part of the gig. The quicker you can then say, okay, I'm going to go hunt for more no's, because I know if I go look for enough no's, you're going to get a yes. So having that mindset, just that, that ruthlessness about you saying, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep knocking on doors and knocking on doors and knocking on doors, because that chasing that yes, that feeling of getting that yes is so good and so beneficial to your business that you're willing to take down 100 no's to get a yes. You're going to be more successful. And it's going to teach you so many things and so many lessons along the way that eventually the no's will be fewer and further between, and you're going to have a higher success rate. So those are just 5 of the lessons that I've learned along the way. Again, there's so many I could go through, but these were 5 that as I was kind of brainstorming, I was thinking, yeah, these are some big ones that I think would be really beneficial to the entrepreneurs out there that tune in, and the business owners and people who are really just, especially early on in their journeys. These are, I think, some common things that I found and I learned that I wish, if I had known this from day one, I think I would be further in my entrepreneurial journey, and my business would be further towards the success that I want for it than I am right now. That being said, I was also fortunate that I did learn these in the time that I did. And so now I'm sitting here, 4 years later, and I'm able to not just share them, but to actually learn them and implement them. And I've seen that growth in my own business in the last 6 months to a year, because I embraced a lot of these lessons that I learned and that were applicable to at least my life and my circumstances. So traditionally on the solo episodes, we finish with a quote that is related to unlocking your potential. And so this one is from Christopher Paolini. Without fear, there cannot be courage. So I'll say it one more time. Without fear, there cannot be courage. And I absolutely love this one, because I think so often people think that because somebody does something and that they're scared of, they think, oh, that person's so courageous. They must have no fear. But the reality is they're probably scared. Business owners, entrepreneurs, most of us are scared a lot of the time anytime we take a big step in our business, anytime we start a new venture, anytime we make a drastic change. But we do whatever is required in spite of the fear, in spite of being scared. And I think this kind of circles back nicely to my last solo episode, which was the conversation about fear of failure and growth mindset. Growth mindset, they talk about the belief that failure is a good thing and that you learn lessons from that and you can grow from it. But it doesn't mean that you're not scared. It doesn't mean that the athlete who, constantly just makes a mistake and tries again, fails and tries again, loses and comes back the next day and trains. It doesn't mean they're not scared. It doesn't mean they don't have fear of failure. It's that in spite of that fear, they continue to persevere, they continue to push and continue to grow until they achieve whatever it is they're trying to achieve. And then they move on to the next goal, which is even bigger and probably even scarier. And in spite of that fear, they push again and they push again. And so I really love that quote, because to be courageous, you actually need fear. If I'm doing something that I'm not scared of at all, well, I'm not courageous at all, because there's no fear of it. So I'm actually not showing courage by doing it. It's actually with the presence of that fear and doing it in spite of it is what really shows true courage. So next time you're scared of something, next time you have a fear of failure, a fear of, not achieving a goal, it's normal and it's okay, but have the courage to go and try anyways. And if you fail, try again anyways, because eventually you will succeed. And that feeling of success after those failures and doing that in spite of your fear is going to be one of the most rewarding feelings you'll ever have. So that concludes today's episode. I really appreciate anybody who tuned in today. Thank you again to my incredible audience who tune in each week and listen. Really appreciate it. I hope there's some pieces today that can help you unlock your potential. And yeah, thanks again. We'll see you guys next time.